Welcome to Creators Edge Studio. I'm Tom Arcu.
And I'm John Colton.
Here at Creators Edge Studio, we talk about pop culture and things that are fun. And we have this philosophy: teach me something I can use. In this episode, we're going to talk about The Matrix 4, also known as Matrix Resurrections. Yes, we're going to have a trailer reaction. And we're talking about Keanu Reeves, Carrie-Anne Moss, Jada Pinkett Smith. They're all reprising their roles from the previous films in the series. This film is directed by Lana Wachowski. And we're also going to talk about what does it take to create a fascinating premise, also known as the big idea for any project. John, you saw the trailer. It just dropped today.
Yeah, I thought it looks amazing. I was super happy when I heard the news that they decided to give Lana Wachowski a sequel, because I know the studio was thinking for a long time about doing a reboot of The Matrix. And that just did not sit right with me. As far as I'm concerned, The Matrix, the first one, is pretty much a perfect film.
Yes.
I put it right up there with Back to the Future, Citizen Kane, The Wizard of Oz. These are in a safe case that says do not touch. I think a sequel, I was really intrigued by the idea of it. And from everything I've seen, I love the concept. I think the idea of going back, just the mystery, what the heck happened to Neo?
Right.
Why is he taking blue pills? Getting to see how it's going to unravel. They have me. I'll be in the theaters with my popcorn.
Now, what really grabbed me too, and we kind of hinted at it, is when Carrie-Anne Moss portrays Trinity. And when Trinity says, "Have we met before?" You're going, whoa, what happened to them? That they have no memory of their love, their relationship. And of course, we long for them to come back together.
Yeah, it's the big what happened.
Right.
And along with that, I was asking, what happened to Lawrence Fishburne? I saw an actor who looks a lot like a young Lawrence Fishburne. And I did some research and I found out that apparently there was a video game after the third movie. And supposedly Morpheus died in that video game. And that is considered canon. But I'm still curious. So how did this younger Morpheus person come into being?
Yeah.
And what's up with that?
When you're creating a trailer, mystery is crucial because you absolutely want people to feel like, I've got to see this. I'm so curious. How does this turn out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of us had that kind of impression with the first Matrix as well. I remember seeing the trailers for that when that first came out. And part of it, I think, is the effects and the technology were all things that we hadn't seen before. But I think the other part of it is exactly what you were talking about, just the mystery. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't mention there are reports that the first Matrix borrowed very heavily, to put it politely, from a Grant Morrison graphic novel, The Invisibles, which I have to confess I haven't read, but I am reading right now, just as a coincidence.
Okay.
Just having read the first issue, it involves this young man who is in trouble with the law, meets a mentor who tells him that this world isn't real, has him take a pill to show him the real reality, teaches him how to fight, and has him jump off a giant skyscraper.
Wow.
I think I've seen some of that before, but I just have to put in the plug for Grant Morrison because he's on the Mount Rushmore of comic book writers. He's worked on X-Men, Batman, Superman.
Yes.
And the first thing that I read of his was Arkham Asylum.
To me, The Matrix, the first film, is it, and I just pretend that number 2 and 3 don't exist.
Okay, so the first one is like pretty much a perfect movie. In the third one, they really didn't explain anything, and everything was still left vague and not 100% coherent. But all the fighting choreography was still done by Wu Ping. I was totally entertained the whole time.
Okay.
I don't know if he's involved in Resurrections.
Well, there's a detail I want to throw in here, though.
Yeah, shoot.
It's probably from Matrix 2. There's a fight where there are so many Agent Smiths, and it got into this whole CGI thing. I remember what your daughter calls it, CGI rainbow puke. We've had this term on the show before, but there were so many flipping around Agent Smiths, and you brought up something interesting recently, the fight scene on What If between Doctor Strange and evil Doctor Strange. And you mentioned that if you have one of them on the ground and his feet raises up all kinds of rubble and you can see the power of a hit because you see what happens to the Doctor Strange on the ground. This is exactly what I thought was missing in some of the choreography in one of the two sequels when there were all these Agent Smiths and you don't see the power because it's just a CGI image of a character going whoosh, oh, you're up in the air, whoosh, there you go.
Yeah, I think the Matrix sequels, it's now become in superhero fight scenes a common mistake when you have two characters who can fly and they're punching each other in the air.
Right.
It just makes for a boring visual dynamic. In comic books, if you're drawing a fight scene, you show the wind up and then the impact.
Right.
They show the wind up and then they show the one person falling back head over heels.
Right.
Or smashing into a brick wall. Back to the Future. We don't see George McFly's hand in slow motion push into Biff's cheek.
Yes.
We see the wind up and then we see Biff's facial expression after his neck has turned.
Right. And he spins completely around. So we're going, that's a heck of a punch. The next step that I'd like us to flow into is crucial. I want to talk about the Matrix in terms of why is it such a fascinating premise and what is the big idea? I thought about this and it really came down to 4 elements. If somebody was going to start to want to craft a premise. Now, I've been looking into this and it used to be if you wanted to work on a TV show, you would submit a spec script and this script would be a later episode of that TV show. But nowadays, if you want to be staffed on a TV show, you have to create your own original premise and submit a pilot episode for this original premise. So this is going to be something that will help people, whether they're creating a series of feature films or a TV series. We're talking about creating a fascinating premise and really creating the big idea. So the 4 elements that I thought about are these. You want to tap into 3 things. You want to tap into a feeling, and unspoken truth, and unease. And when you look at the Matrix, it's got all 3 because there are a number of people I've talked with over the years who really don't feel at home in the world. And some people who have a spiritual point of view, they kind of feel that it is an illusion, that the spiritual reality is not what we seem to experience day to day, that we're separated from each other, or that we have to be opponents, or we have to compete for resources or something, that there's a spiritual reality that is deeper and is different than the illusions of everyday life. So that might be the unspoken truth. So we feel bad because the unspoken truth is that perhaps what we see as the world is the illusion. So those were the 3 things: feeling, unspoken truth, and unease. Then the 4th element is to create a revelation or a realization. And of course, Neo has that revelation when he takes the appropriate pill and he discovers what the world really is. It's a revelation. It's a realization.
I think you really hit it on the head there. And when I think of original premise, some key things come to mind, like the movie I Am Legend. And I just tell you the title and you know the premise. Or Groundhog Day. Or maybe something like Armageddon.
Right.
Or The Martian.
Yes.
Castaway.
Right. It's right in the title.
Yeah. And just having a strong, good idea.
Yes.
And I think all of those hit the 4 things that you're talking about.
Right. Right. I'm with you. So when we look at the Matrix, we can see that it ties into the feeling that many of us have that something's wrong, something is off about how people function in the world and what the world seems to be. And then the unspoken truth. Of course, I recall the original campaign, which is, what is the Matrix? And so that was intriguing. And then tying into unease. And of course, that inherently is dramatic. The idea that we don't feel at ease, there's something that's not right.
Well, I think that's something that kind of right now is widely discussed, is kind of the idea that this is not how we were meant to live.
Yes.
With all this technology. And maybe that is connected to why people take so much medication now.
Wow. It's also going on that many of us, with our alerts on our smartphones or whatever, we're basically on 24/7. And it is intense. There is video showing people, one gentleman, he almost gets hit by a car because he's looking at his smartphone while he's crossing the street. You see video where this one female individual, she actually goes over a banister and falls into a hole in the cement where they get the packages because she was looking at her phone. People talk about FOMO, fear of missing out. We've allowed ourselves to change and twist in reaction to technology, as opposed to having technology serve us. We're now being pushed and letting the pushing happen. We talked about, to create that fascinating premise, the big idea, we're talking about 4 elements: tapping into a feeling, unspoken truth, and unease, and create a revelation or realization. So this has been excellent. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Tom.
So thanks for listening to our show. We're so glad that I think you had a cue there, John.
And if you like easy access to the latest videos, become a subscriber and you'll get notifications of new uploads and new videos.
That was certainly formal there, John.
Well,
Okay.
I'm a big fan.
Catch you next time.